Um, I actually didn't want to say anything about Rebel Moon Part 2. In particular because of the fact of the experience itself from watching the movie. Uh, I I have to admit, this has got to be one of the worst movies I have ever had the displeasure of watching. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or anything like that. This movie is really, really bad. Now, I went in on the first movie with a review you can look at somewhere on my channel, where, yeah, I broke down exactly how bad the first one was. But the sequel it's just nowhere near better or even fixes a majority of the issues that are just riddled all throughout the first one. And you can't help but feel bad because I have no ill will towards Zack Snyder as a director.
It smells like pussy in here!
But this is a movie where he had complete autonomy against
I just speak gooder than you.
He had complete control over this movie, right? There was literally no one above him. Netflix gave him a blank check.
It's okay. Sometimes in business you gotta lose money to lose money. Make money. Fuck.
He was the writer and the director and the editor. So to see his creativity in all its glory being done in two movies that are just unbelievably horrible, you have to understand that he is the one to blame. This is such a horrible movie. And the only reason that I'm making this video is because I found out recently is that they're going to release a director's cut of both movies.
Come on!
Again, he had complete control over everything. This is the director's cut. Ironically enough, this is a similar situation to in the video game world when Kojima made I can't even remember the name of the damn game. The thing with the babies and you basically are an Amazon delivery person. And then they released a director's cut for the PS5, I believe, when he had complete control over the game. So what director's cut? It's the exact same thing.
I'll never forgive this.
But it's hard for me to even try to break down exactly how ridiculous and bad this movie is, considering that it's just a movie filled with not even good spectacles, but just shit. It was like shit happening, but it was still shit. You had action scenes that essentially were boring and uninspiring. You had a bunch of explosions that just kind of seemed ill-placed and ridiculous. You had fight scenes and weird symbolisms and all this stuff to where you can tell this is coming from the mind of like a 3-year-old who's just happy to be playing with some toys that he just got. He doesn't know what these toys are. He just got them. You can't even explain what these toys are to him because he's done created something completely different with them. So, whatever. And you're looking at him and it's like nothing that you say makes sense. And it seems like you're tripping over your own words as you're trying to explain it to me, but you're a child. So, have your fun. But this is a grown fucking man that we're talking about, and it just seems ridiculous. Just so unbelievably ridiculous. Too many moments in this movie just seemed unnecessary, stupid, over the top, bloated, and just poorly directed. Which is crazy from a guy that actually has directed good movies. But those movies had other people over his shoulder to pull in the reins, if you will. And having him go off the cusp and just do whatever he wants, he ain't that guy. And you can clearly see it in how Rebel Moon was done. Now, this movie just kind of starts off exactly where the first one left off, where they're with the people, they're with the people, and then they're going to teach them how to defend themselves as an entire battleship comes with soldiers and shit to kill these farmers for grain that live on a planet that don't farm the entire planet, but essentially they just get grain. Again, everything about it is just so like derivative of other movies that already exist that makes sense with the context of the story that Zack Snyder was trying to paint. You you can't help but make comparisons with Star Wars to this movie because this movie goes out of its way to copy Star Wars at every chance they could get. Someone having lightsabers. They literally not only made blades out of light, but they were far more saberish shaped than lightsabers themselves. Idiot. And you have a robot that essentially is aware of its own self and and feels it has a sense of duty, but also a sense of wonder and
Is it supposed to be stupid?
It's not stupid. It's advanced.
it, you have the people being trained by these old soldiers and whatnot, essentially falling in the reins of the Magnificent Seven. Everything that I criticized the movie for copying in my review of the first movie, they doubled down on the second one. Now, granted, I understand that they weren't going to be able to change up anything within the short time that they released both movies, but the shit just got worse. I mean, there's an entire elongated montage of these people harvesting grain. You didn't need to show this. With the bloated runtime that the movie got already, it just makes more and more stupid shit. Then you get the derivative moment of just, hey everyone, let's sit down and talk about our backstory and hope that this tries to bring about some sense of world building. And again, it's in a movie that essentially only has a part one and a part two, and I'm assuming they thought that the fan outcry was going to be so great that they would make a part three. But no, just no. I can see Netflix doing it anyway because they're stupid with money, but no. And then again, this is also coming off the heels of when they let Zack Snyder do that damn heist movie with the zombies, which didn't make any sense. And that movie was dragged through the mud for being ridiculous, stupid, and completely dumb, considering the fact that one of the main things about Zack Snyder was if you let him do his own thing, you're going to get a good movie. And that just couldn't be further from the truth after that first incursion. But upon, I guess, whatever deal Netflix signed with him to get Rebel Moon made, you just have this complete dumpster fire of a movie. Like I said, it's spectacle, but there's nothing to it.
It was boring, Huey.
So many times where you basically have to pause the movie and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. What does this mean? What are they doing? Nothing about what is happening could be any type of continuity outside of Zack Snyder thought this was cool, so he stuck it in this movie. Does it make sense? No. Is it anything worthwhile? No. Is it good? No. He just thought it was cool. And because of that overarching aspect, you have so much wrong with this movie to where it was like, yeah, he didn't care for these details because he just wanted to do the shit that he thought was cool. But the problem is, it's only cool if it works within your movie, and it doesn't work. You just threw it in there without any type of substance to essentially establish what is happening that makes it worth anything. And I'm pretty sure in most of his movies that he's known for that actually are praised for his good direction, a lot of those movies involve shit that either already had a frame of reference, like the 300 movie, which was a fucking graphic novel, or were movies that essentially were written by someone else that he then came out the woodworks and decided to direct. these things are stuff that essentially he only had to just be the director. That's it. That's all he had to do was just direct. So with essentially this movie, it's like, yeah, you clearly lost your goddamn mind. Like I said, it had nothing going for it. Absolutely nothing. You just spend so much time wondering and questioning every little thing and every single decision. And it just, all that it can boil down to is just he thought this was cool. That's it. He thought this was cool. He didn't care how it got implemented into the story or how it got showcased within this movie, but it needed to be done because he thought it was cool. The end. And you can't make a movie like that, especially make something that people actually are going to want to pay attention to or give a damn about. Apparently, this movie has so much background lore behind it in the hopes of also copying Star Wars that there's just so much in this movie to where shit just appeared and I was like, what is this? And then to see other people break down the movie and hear essentially his excuse towards shit to where it was like, well, Zack Snyder apparently did this because he thought this was going to happen. It's like, what? Well, why didn't the movie just kind of present that in a way to make that make sense? He lacks that ability as far as storytelling goes. The nigga can just direct. That's it.
Remove the tone, because that's awful.
And it's sad. It's incredibly sad because this was a movie that I had the disdain of looking at, and it irked me. I had to watch it in segments. I couldn't even sit down and look at it because I was getting so bored. It was making me sleepy, and it just unbelievably dumb. Just so dumb. I didn't care for the characters. I didn't care for anything else. And before I forget, backtracking to essentially him not even paying attention to the little things, you had issues where essentially just the basic level of fucking acting and dialogue in this movie was just all over the place. You seen people either overact, underact, or just unbelievably fumble the ball when it came to just trying to deliver a good performance. He stacked the deck up with these actors that are more than capable of actually acting, but they're being directed by a man who wrote a shitty story. And you can't really help someone who is telling you, hey, deliver a line like this, and nothing that I say makes any goddamn sense, but you deliver it anyway.
You are the bitchest nigger I have ever met.
Filled to the brim with the whole female forward bullshit. Had a bunch of moments where basically the women in this farm area were carrying the big guns while a bunch of the older men were cowering behind everybody.
What?
It made no sense. You had, the female protagonist just kind of get away unscathed with everything, even though, she should be brought up on war crimes or should have been killed, or even at a moment where everyone was like, well, if they're only after her, why can't we just it may, but it's like, even with the idea of, well, if you just surrender you, then we'll leave everyone alone. All right, I'm gonna do that. You can't do that, right? But people here barely know her. They barely like her. This is a good way for her to feel like she's redeeming herself. She already is kind of trying to get out from the fact that she just sat there and let these people, or let her surrogate father kill the royal family and then blame her for some reason, which also didn't make any goddamn sense because he blamed her in front of a bunch of people who helped him kill the royal family in a weird Caesar-esque kind of way, which also didn't fucking work, and it also seemed ridiculous that he would need to establish that his daughter killed the little princess girl or whatever, when also that didn't need to happen. He could, if he wanted to blame her anyway, he could have just killed her and then still blamed her. And if you put so much work into making her basically be this perfect soldier, why try to fuck with her in the first place? So realistically, I just wanted to kind of lay down the line of the fact that this movie is something that I urge you to never watch. it's not even something to look at. It's like, okay, I can see. Well, I mean, like with all good bad movies, you know, sit down with a group of friends, just laughing at everything being done. But even then, I'd feel that this movie would essentially be pulling teeth. But it's that bad. So, yeah, Rebel Moon Part 2 is just not good. Not worth anyone's time, and really, really, really should be just left alone. It's a really bad movie. Don't watch it.
That was beautiful.